Hi, how's it going?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to drink a little whiskey. How about
Yeah,
yourself?
so we're starting with the slaughterhouse?
Yeah, we sure are.
Okay.
Where are you drinking this morning?
I have a fun little setup in my kitchen.
Oh, fantastic. It looks so professional. I had resort to my outside studio here.
I feel like I might do that next time.
I did a little trimming of the tree just so I could get enough sun. I had to keep moving my setup. It's
Nice.
the new normal, but the new normal is not too bad.
Exactly. You just got to adapt a little bit.
So we're going to start our tasting. We can talk all about it, but this is the first bottle that we're tasting, which is Slaughterhouse. This is made by the Splinter Group.
Mm-hmm.
And the Splinter Group is out of Napa. And it's a couple of heavy hitter industry leaders, including probably the best known person out there, Bob Cabral. He's a master winemaker. He's probably best known for his 100-point score of a Pinot Noir from William Sellium that he made. So he was a groundbreaking winemaker when it came to Pinot Noir in California. So he is paired up with the Wilkinson family.
Okay.
And initially, John Wilkinson, and let's take a little sniff of this, and then I'll keep talking. What are you getting on the nose there?
Lots of vanilla in the first kind of smell.
This is an American whiskey. American whiskey being kind of the most general category for whiskey made in America, of course. It allows a lot of flexibility, and I think it's a great place to start with this Splinter Group because, as you can see, the bottle design is all about, hey, stepping up to an Old West bar and, give me the bottle kind of thing. So that was their concept, and you'll see it as you go through the whiskeys here that it's kind of rough and ready. It's a whiskey that is sourced from Kentucky and then finished in wine barrels. So there's the wine connection. That's why Bob Cabral, he's really our palate for this spirit group, of the Splinter Group. And I'll just go ahead and preface so you can get all this information. If you have any questions that maybe I haven't covered in this, you can always go to the splintergroupspirits.com.
Okay,
and
great.
It's part of Vintage Wine Estates. So that's one of the partners in this. They're the producer, owner, and distributor of this. Well, we have partner distributors, but they're the ones who manage all that around the country. So if you're ever looking, for where you can find this stuff, you can always go to Vintage Wine Estates or the Splinter Group spirits.com. So,
and there we could search your zip code or whatnot, and it would tell you where to find it in your area.
Yeah. Just so we make sure we get that out of the way, just so you know, you can get these. They are available around the country.
Great.
It is a small production, artisanal spirit, and what they're doing is sourcing, especially with the American whiskey here. They're sourcing basically 9-year-old whiskey from Kentucky. Bardstown is the main distiller. They do have a formula and a recipe that this distillery is making for us. But until and that's Steve Nally, however you pronounce his name, but he's a master distiller out there. He has our recipe. And until our barrels have aged, let's say 6 years, it's only been about 5 years or so right now, 6-7 years. When they're ready, we'll start blending into these different expressions, right? So right now we're sourcing, and then they bring those barrels to Napa, and we finish them in wine casks, conditioned casks that have been used probably 2-3 years. The first two are going to be in Cabernet or Merlot, so Bordeaux variety casks from Napa, high-end, super high-end, ultra premium wine, Napa Cab for the most part. And so I'm pointing this out because on the nose, you should know what you're looking for, right?
I was just going to say, I pick up, so while I do smell that kind of vanilla, there's also kind of like a currant, dry, raisin, golden raisin kind of smell to it.
Totally. I mean, it's definitely caramelized. You get those baking spices. It's
Mm-hmm.
everything you expect. And what I also get is a little bit of an edge to it, and not to be punny, because the next spirit is called straight edge, but it
Right.
truly has a little bit of an edge, and I think that's a positive thing, especially when it comes to drinks. So I always like to say, smell and see if it tastes the way it smells, so that's what I'm expecting on the palate. So let's taste it. It always takes 2 or 3 sips, which is maybe just an excuse to drink more, but 2 or 3
Yeah,
sips
why
for your
not?
palate to get adapted, and get acclimated to the spirit. So let's go number 2 here. Hmm. And just for anyone watching this that isn't used to drinking spirits straight, um, spirits were designed to be reconstituted, is the term, the correct term that no one uses, right? And we reconstitute them in cocktails by the
Right.
addition of ice, which is water. So if you add a little bit of water to this, it will open it up. Now,
Open
I
it up.
drank all my water. I would have to go in the house to get more water, or go to the fish tank over here, which I'm not going to do, fish farm. So sometimes that opens it up, the spirit up a little bit. And so, hey, while you're at home, these next however months, experiment. And that's the fun part about spirits. There's no wrong way to drink it or to mix it.
And would you say, kind of in a more professional manner, right? You'd like taste it straight, then you'd do maybe a couple of drops of water, do a secondary taste, and then potentially then add yet another 2 or 3 drops.
Yeah,
Because I mean, it just like slowly opens it up, the flavors for sure.
Yeah, cognac was one of the first spirits really created for mass consumption, and they were actually trying to avoid taxation by creating cognac. So the producers of wine in France saw an opportunity with the technology of distillation to concentrate the wine, to reduce its volume, and therefore avoid taxation on. So instead of being taxed on 6 barrels of wine, you could be taxed on 1 barrel of cognac. This is whiskey, but on cognac, and so everything is a happy mistake, really, or coincidence, right? Is that because then they put them in barrels and they ship them far, then they gain color. So that's the history of brown spirits, right there in a nutshell. But
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating. Yeah, champagne's the same. Happy accident. So what we're tasting now in the Slaughterhouse American whiskey here, will you tell me first, and then I'll tell you what I think I'm getting.
Well, I definitely do get, again, those initial notes of vanilla. Mm-hmm. It does have that golden raisin flavor to it, also on the palate that I did pick up in the nose. Nice, and then for sure, it definitely has some, wood is the wrong word, but you can feel it. It has a mouthfeel for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up. Mouthfeel often is kind of relegated to the second thing or the third, or not even thought about. And mouthfeel is actually the main component of any kind of wine, spirit, I believe, that attracts you, that beckons you for the second taste. It's about balance. So when we're tasting these spirits, above all, they're balanced. Mm-hmm. A lot of whiskeys in my and I'm a wine specialist, WSET diploma, and I love educating people about wine and spirits. I own my own spirit brand for many years. Yeah, thank you. It's called Campo de Encanto Pisco, and we were always looking for. Did you not know that?
I didn't know that, but I am familiar with that name.
Yeah, Campo de Encanto. We were top, ultra premium Pisco. Cool. But we were always looking for 2 things before flavor, and that was mouthfeel, and balance is kind of a part of that, I would say.
Right.
It's 1A and 1B.
If one overwhelms, then it makes it unpleasant to enjoy.
And I noticed that with a lot of whiskeys, not these, but a lot of whiskeys, they try to overwhelm. I think it starts with the modus, the origin. Why were these people making this spirit? What are their palates like? This is a winemaker's palate. So
Right.
what you're going to taste here is just like I have my little tasting thing. You're going to taste an arc of flavor. You're going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And not just one spiky point of flavor, right? That I taste from a lot of whiskeys, right? And often that is that wood. So that's the reason I'm bringing it up right now. Is that the wood is well integrated. So you say it's there, but it's not something that it's not beating you over the head or your palate, right?
No, it definitely comes on the back end of the flavor. It's definitely not what you initially get, which is nice because there's a lot of, whiskeys, bourbons that kind of just overpower you instantaneously with that wood complexity.
Yep, totally. There's no way, I just want to emphasize this, especially with the American, there's no wrong way to drink this. So I'm putting a little ice in there. That cools it off.
Some water in mine.
It's starting to get warm in the sun. And I mean, I can already smell a difference. I'm getting much more of the caramel and the honey, some of those lighter notes.
Honey, that's a really nice.
Yeah, that were obscured.
It almost has like an orange blossom smell to it a little bit.
Wow, now it's really opening up. This is such a great way to start my day. Thank you so much.
Thursday, who knew?
I know, totally. I know there's so many comments on Facebook about how time is different, and it's like there's no longer, what did someone say, AM and PM, it's coffee or wine.
Yeah. Yep. And then I called it the in-between hour where it's both.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, bourbon's great for the morning, that's for sure. It's a great breakfast spirit, I think.
Yes.
Especially in your coffee. I've done that. The American whiskey, definitely great for that.
Oh, nice. Also good in tea.
Oh, what kind of tea?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think of like hot toddy, kind of as a tea, but also totally. I played around a few years ago and did like it was a English breakfast infused whiskey.
Nice.
Really, really good.
Yeah, how fun. If anyone out there, if you're serious about your whiskeys and you want to make your own cocktails at home, we can figure a reason to send you a small barrel. I have some small barrels. I'm just saying. If anyone really wants to experiment at home, make a cocktail, I would figure that out, especially, if you're in the Sonoma area. It'd be a little easier to get to you.
I might take you up on that offer.
I can fully sanitize it. You got it. You got one. I'll definitely. Why didn't I bring one yesterday? I don't know why. Totally. We can do that.
Awesome.
So yeah, barrel-aged cocktails are fantastic. If anyone doesn't really know what that's about, it's pretty simple. You just take booze, you take vermouth, you take whatever cocktail recipe you have that does not involve citrus. It needs to be spirituous initially, and you put it in a barrel. You could be mixing this with tequila, and in 3 weeks, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. You put a little mezcal with one of these. You would, just a little mezcal with a lot of whiskey, you would really kick up that smoky quality, right?
I bet. What an interesting combo. Yeah, it's fun.
This sounds really strange, but I'm a chef by training, and one of the recipes that has blown my mind for years is a simple one, and it doesn't sound good until you let it sit in the fridge, and it's peanut butter and green onion, bacon. And I think there might be some soy in there, but I don't think you need it. But you could riff on that. Yeah, like it's a spread, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I only had it one time. It was years ago, but it's always stuck in my head, and I could not tell what it was.
Because that is phenomenal.
Because they had blended it for, it had stayed in the fridge for 2 or 3 days, and by that time you're like, I think it's bacon. I know it's peanut butter. Like, what else is in this? And you just. So it's amazing. Fun. Yeah, it's amazing how things blend and change over time.
Right.
Let's move on to the straight edge.
Great.
So the straight edge is a bourbon, and really it's kind of like, the definitions are a little difficult. I have to admit. I feel like with a lot of these categories, and I don't think anyone should get hung up on it.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got something like the American whiskey, this is almost like saying California red wine, right?
Sure.
Right, or Sonoma red wine, you know, and this is more like saying single vineyard.
But
a little bit like that.
Change some of its not laws, but originally I think you could only, wow, look at the color differentiation.
Well, this did have the water as well, but
sure.
Yeah, there
You could
definitely
only
was.
call it bourbon if it came out of like a specific area in Kentucky, or
now it's not. You can make bourbon anywhere,
and so now it's
that's
more
why it's confusing.
The blend ratio, right? It's like corn and wheat blend.
There's some there's some regulations. I mean, mainly, you know, if it says corn whiskey, it needs to be 51%. Usually, you know, and bourbon as well, 51% corn. But that's a pretty minimal. That's a pretty low baseline. You know, I mean, there's really not. There's so much else that can go on, which, and this is probably the best comparison or answer to that, is that with the American whiskey, right, you had 85%, 70 to 85% corn.
Okay.
And then there's just a little bit of wheat, about 8%, and then a little bit of rye and a little bit of barley.
Okay.
Right? So the mash, which is where we're getting our sugars to ferment, to turn into, you know, it's basically beer. So you think about it like a beer, right? It's the grain that goes into the beer that is then distilled, right? The straight edge is very different. You know, it's predominantly, again, corn, around the same percentage, 70%.
Okay.
This is a little bit more. But this actually has a big dose of rye, 17%. So I think that is more important than mash bill. Who's making it, and what's the philosophy behind it, than even it being called bourbon or American. To me, it's much more about the producer and the formulation. What are you getting on this one?
I definitely get like an initial stone fruit, apple, pear note.
You're so on. You're good at this. Are you in this business? You sound like you're fairly knowledgeable.
I actually studied beverage management in college. It's on my degree.
Nice, very good. Where'd you go to college?
I went to University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Wow, that's got to be an interesting place to study.
It is interesting.
Are there slot machines in the dorms, or no common areas? No.
No, it's actually there. I haven't been in many years, but I mean, obviously, when I was in college, they were really tough. At least the strip was on fake IDs, but so they take that pretty seriously down there. And then by the time you are 21, it's like so unappealing, kind of. You're kind of like,
totally,
because it's just there. It's just always there, right?
I can do about a day, maybe two. Like an overnight.
For the longest time, I lived there for 4.5 years, and I originally was a culinary arts major, wanted to be a pastry chef, and then decided
I was a pastry chef.
Nice, yeah. Decided I wanted to keep it a hobby, and so ended up in hotels and in food and beverage, front and back of house, and
nice.
But beverage has always been a big passion of mine, and so when Poppy and Vine launched, it kind of was like figuring out what it wanted to kind of, you know, focus on, and distilled spirits were really, there was like kind of a big pop-up of them in 2018 when Poppy and Vine launched, and so it just felt appropriate to highlight them and showcase them. And I mean, there's so many in Sonoma County. I think we have 15 at least that have tasting rooms. So
that's incredible.
I mean, then there's more than that. So
well, cheers to you as we get into this spirit. This is a good one to cheers, because thank you so much for reaching out to the distilling community and asking how you could help.
Yeah, I'm glad we could all get together and do this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really great. It's going to give us a lot of insight into our neighbors and figure out how we move forward in this new environment, this new norm.
Yeah.
So what are you getting? I put a little ice in this, by the way, because I was noticing it felt a little tight. It feels more dense than the American. feels like there's more layers, more going on here. Even though the American is actually a 9-year, this is a blend of 5, 7, and 8-year whiskey. Again, from Bardstown, from Kentucky. They bring it to Napa. They put it into oak barrels that have been seasoned with wine. So very expensive oak barrels. Bob Cabral goes to France, and he'll literally pick out the tree that he wants the barrels made into.
Wow.
Right? The staves that come out of the tree to put it, and probably even the side of the tree, which I hear is important. If you got a tree and you've got an uphill slope, then the staves from this side are more the grain is tighter than on this side, right? This side has to grow further than on this side. So he's very particular about what type of staves he's using for his consulting. He consults for a bunch of kind of cult wineries, and once he's finished with those barrels, that's what they use to finish this whiskey in. And I meant to say this earlier, but I think what that does is you've got 2 regiments of oak, right? It's almost like, what's a good way to say it? It's like it's not like you've got 2. It's a little bit like you've got 2 coats, but I don't think of it that way. I think of it like a suit with tails. You've got the actual. You've got the top layer, you got the main layer, and then you got something that really pulls the finish back and elongates it. So hopefully you'll notice that in these spirits. So
the mouthfeel on this one is so much softer than the American whiskey. It's very, not that the other one wasn't enjoyable, but they just obviously are very different in their approach. And where I think the American whiskey, it would do really well with, some form of a fun cocktail. The straight edge, I could really just enjoy kind of sipping it slowly, whether that's neat or on the rocks, and call it a day.
Totally. I think you're right. And that's what they're designed for. And so the design is fitting the palate, which I think is really important to, I've got a dog under my table now, and a kid swinging in a little hammock over here.
Nice.
So new normal. New normal.
Yeah.
So I think you're exactly right, is that this bottling, and the producers don't have to tell me this. I know this just by tasting, and everyone else does, because people undervalue their palates, and I mean that sincerely. I think for 80% of the people out there, they've got great, maybe 90, 95%, they've got great palates based on a cultural background kind of base. And I think we all know what balance is. This is just food, wine, spirits, different type of food, right? It's sugar, basically.
Yeah.
So we all understand what balance is, and the best way to understand what balance is to ask yourself, do I want another sip? Do I want another glass? Will I drink the whole bottle?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe.
The answer's maybe. Hey, we got a lot of time. We got a lot of time at home. Okay, this bottle will not last probably to the end of the week. So you already see that I've enjoyed some. It's called market research.
There you go.
It's called. So I think you're exactly right. Is that it's smoother by design, even though it's a younger whiskey, which is interesting, right? Doesn't again age doesn't necessarily mean quality or
I think that's the misnomer, right? Is that people kind of blindly believe that, and that's not necessarily true.
It's like it's like vodka. How many times has it been distilled? Who cares? None of that matters, right?
Yeah.
I would rather something like my Pisco was single distilled one time. That's to me the purest you can get, right? But back to straight edge, is that this is incredibly enjoyable. Like you said, I really like all the stone fruit. Some of the things I was getting before was this kind of maple.
Yeah.
So maybe that's in that line with honey. I think you're right on dried fruit. It has a little bit more campfire on it. I feel like a little bit more that smoky.
Yeah, on the nose, I can see that. But
the finish is really, really, really smooth. I mean, between these two bottlings, I'm going to drink this.
Yeah.
And with the American whiskey, I'm gonna be mixing with that one. I think
exactly.
It's what we're talking about here. kind of going back to the packaging, it's nice, it's striking. They're not trying to get too complicated with it.
Right.
Again, the straight edge is representing that kind of Old West feel, after you shoot a man cold, in the middle of the
Just
street.
walk in from the street.
You need to get a good a bottle of whiskey and a nice close shave,
Yeah,
So
there you go. Belly up to the bar in the saloon.
Oh yeah, you got some partying to do.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the whipsaw. Whipsaw is our newest expression. It's a little harder to find out there. But it is available. And again, hopefully, I'd be happy to put my email on there too. If anyone had any questions, I could answer them directly.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great. We'll for sure get that information.
Yeah, feel free to do that. And so what you have is a rye whiskey, so it has to be over 51%. This rye is closer to 76%. I want to make sure.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's a very powerful rye, and hopefully you'll notice a similarity between these two because, like I mentioned, this did have a good portion of rye in it, so you get that more of that peppery. And I meant to mention that a peppery kind of finish, elongated finish because of those.
It does have a pepper finish to it. Again, not overpowering, not hot, but it's just kind of there.
Yep. Well, I think that is what, these are all my children to a certain degree, right? And I love them all. This one is, to me, the most, for a rye, it's the most balanced. It's the most shocking, most surprising. I taste a lot of ryes, and I feel like most of them are incredibly out of balance.
I am not a big rye fan, and that might be because I had maybe not a great experience with one.
It's like tequila when you're in college. It's exactly how rye is. Is that you get a rye, and it's because, again, it goes back to why were they making it? Well, it's almost like the pepper heads, like chili heads. Is that people who really like hot chili? And I'm a chef by training. I love chili, but I want to taste the food.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me to turn everything up to 11, right? This is at 8.
Okay.
This is a rye that's turned up to 8. It's balanced. It's got that pepper that you expect, and maybe it's more of a.
I think what I'm smelling is cherry and pink peppercorn are kind of like the two.
I was just about to say, what kind of pepper do you think that is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, cherry. A lot of that is coming from the finish. So this takes a little different path than these two at the end. So this, again, Bardstown, sourcing the barrels, choosing where they sit in the rick house, which is where you store the barrels, right? Which is very important to how they age, right? How much oak influence really gets integrated into that spirit. And then they bring them back to Napa. They blend. So that's really where the art here of the winemaker is showing, is that he's blending to a very smooth expression, and then putting that into Pinot Noir casks.
Oh, okay.
So this one to me is like, Pinot Noir from William Selliam. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that.
I don't know either.
I just did. William Selliam Pinot Noir. If you don't like rye and you don't get a bottle of this at some point in the near future, you're missing out.
This is
the only rye you need.
It's delicious.
The only
and
one.
I'm not a big rye fan. My fiance is, and so he'll be very excited to try this.
It really doesn't even need. Sorry, I have tree stuff in my ice here. It really doesn't even need ice, I don't think. I think it's pretty balanced. And my glasses are warming up here in the sun.
Sure.
But I'm going to see how it is.
It's very enjoyable on its own. And I think that's sometimes hard to accomplish for a rye, for sure.
Well, especially if you like Manhattans. And the traditional Manhattan does use rye. And so I think that's why this is an exceptional choice for your Manhattan needs. I've got a tree that's like putting a third eye. I can do it perfectly right there.
Yeah.
This is really enjoyable.
The spice, I added some water, and the spice definitely picks up.
It popped out.
Addition. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Where when it was on its own, it was actually fairly subtle, where you kind of expect that to be the opposite.
Yep. Yeah. So you're gonna get when you mix with this, that's gonna show you. It's exactly what it's gonna do. It's gonna show you how it will react in a cocktail.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, depending on what you add to it, there's going to be other factors, of course.
Sure.
But the dilution will show you, okay, once water or ice is added, once I shake it or stir it, it's gonna open up in this particular way. It's just like a flower. It's opening up. What are you going to say? Oh, okay, I saw a lot of red on the outside. Now I'm seeing lots of yellow. You know, and it's totally like that.
Nice. Yeah.
And I just want to keep going back to that one.
Very tasty.
Ooh. So let's finish off the tasting, and then we'll just go over a couple of cocktails here. Easy cocktails. This is a real shining star in the vintage wine estates portfolio. It's called the Partner Sweet Vermouth, again made by the Splinter Group, which is just a sub company kind of within our company. And this is an exceptional expression of vermouth. It does say sweet vermouth. I think it's an unusual vermouth in the best possible way, is that it's made from really high quality wine.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that others aren't. I'm just saying that I know the wine industry, and traditionally vermouth was made from, most likely, especially in Italy and France, it's the leftover wine, right? What you're doing is taking wine and you're fortifying it. And what does fortification do? I'm not going to ask you that question. What does it do?
I was like, I forget.
When you add alcohol or sugar, which is sugar, what does it do to things?
It increases its volume of alcohol.
It's true, and which preserves it.
Right.
So wine is not as stable as something as wine with spirits, right? So in the true olden days, not just 3 weeks ago. The real olden days is that, you could not transport wine
it
on a
wasn't
ship
stable enough.
over 3. It wasn't stable, right? It would spoil. So how do you keep it from spoiling or turning as fast? Is that you add one of two things, maybe three things: alcohol, sugar, right? Think about port, think about marsala, think about sherry. All those are designed for long journeys over sea in a sailboat. That's what they were designed for. And so
spirits back then were much rougher, so to speak. And so, so pouring them into something like a wine to fortify it actually probably benefited the spirit just as much.
Totally. That's a really, really good point. Yeah. There's a lot to be said about that. A lot of the wine laws are as a result of a bad behavior. Let's call it like that in the wine and spirits business, right? So they were putting Syrah in Burgundy.
Got it.
And that's why the AOC laws started in France. All these laws, a denomination of origin laws started in France because they wanted to drink Pinot and not Syrah from Languedoc.
Yeah, and so that's where you see it can only be 3% of one type of varietal in order to be called X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, exactly. So,
the smell on this is delicious.
Isn't that fun? It's
spicy. I would just want to kind of drink it on its own. It reminds me.
Yeah, perfect. That's what I'm saying, is that this is high quality wine. That was a long way to get to that point. Is that it's very high quality. So we're starting out with a pretty expensive base. And when you're buying your $10 sweet vermouth, just remember that it started with wine. So you're buying wine that's really, really inexpensive. When you buy something like this is, I call it the holy hand grenade. It's $3.75, right? You just
That's
why it's the holy. Pour it in. And, this is locally made in Napa from high quality Pinot, Petit Syrah and Merlot, right? From a single vineyard.
No wonder I like it so much.
Yep. And then they add spices, of course. They add a little bit of alcohol, and then they're also adding local Lodi cherries.
Delicious.
So this is made to drink on its own, and it's also thicker and denser than most vermouths. Yes,
it definitely has a thicker mouthfeel for sure. I have never been a big vermouth fan. I just, something about it has been off-putting to me.
Yeah.
But this is really, really delicious. And I know when you and I spoke yesterday, you had mentioned like just putting it in sparkling water and it will like, and I didn't get a chance to do that yesterday, but I'm excited to do that
today. We're gonna do it right now.
Oh my gosh, it's delicious.
Well, I think that's how we're gonna get through all this. If you like to drink, but you don't want to have the big hangover, and you've got to keep doing work, and you've got to educate your child. I've got a 6-year-old. And so I've got 2 jobs now. I've got my regular job, which I'm just, trying to make I'm trying to pivot as much as I can, and educating my son. So I'm a teacher as well. So this is the perfect solution, right? Because truly solution, right, without being too punny, is that you just put a little water, a little ice in it, and it's good to go. Or I like to add a little club soda, actually. So I'm gonna open that up. I forgot my opener. There we go.
Perfect.
And it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Look how gorgeous that is.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
It's got very little. I'm going to get back into the sun here. Delicious. Perfect. What I really like is there's a little bit of minty eucalyptus on it. It's that eucalyptus cherry. Hopefully that imagery kind of brings up some visual flavors in your mouth. Is that it's got that it's a little bit of a cherry bomb, but it's really dry. It's not sweet.
No, it's not overly sweet at all. It's a nice it's a very nice balance. I mean, it says sweet vermouth, but I don't know if I would really, it just has a bit of like you said, a drier finish and flavor to it. It's really nice. It's a really well done vermouth.
Let's see if I can keep my head in here, and I'm going to transition here to making a quick little cocktail. So the easiest thing to do here is to mix, make like a little Manhattan. And actually, I'm going to pour this now so I can get the right. Now look how pretty that looks.
Yeah.
See, that's the way to do it. Do that for your honey.
Yeah.
Wake them up with that. Wouldn't that be awesome? You could put a little fruit juice in it. Delicious. I want to have some of that.
The revised version of mimosas.
It totally is, and you could put a nice little citrus wheel on it. Let's do that. I'll give this to my wife afterwards. She'll
be excited.
I hope so.
Perfect for lunch.
Really, this is the point of this whole broadcast, this whole recording is let's just get through this.
Yeah.
without killing each other, and make the best use of our time here. And this is going to be it. I'm just going to do this to it. Boop, boop. She's going to love that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Top it up a little bit. There you go. I just made her super happy. You can even add a little wine to it.
Yeah.
Champagne would be fantastic, or sparkling wine.
Delicious.
Done. Yep. So let's make a quick little Manhattan because it's so easy with the partner. And I'm not going to get too sophisticated here. If I can find my jigger. Here it is. I personally, and it's probably just from cooking so long, I don't usually measure things very accurately. And I was a pastry chef too, so I don't know. They never rubbed off on me to measure things very well, but I'll try to right now. And it's usually, for a Manhattan, it's usually about 2 to 1, 3, or even a 3 to 1 with the whiskey to vermouth ratio. But what I like to do is add a little bit less of the partner vermouth because it's so intense.
Right.
So I just, I don't make it too complicated here. It's just whatever this is. Let's just put that much in. Not quite 2 ounces. It looks like an ounce and a half.
Probably about that, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm not going to go to the 3/4. Oh, yeah, I can see. Actually, I can. This is the first time I've been able to read them very well out here.
Out in the sunshine.
Yeah, in the sunshine. There you go, just about this. And then this is really the key to happiness with your cocktails, right? Bitters. This is the Fee Brothers Black Walnut. I'm doing this.
Oh.
I'm focusing on this one because, one, I love it. And two, I have this beautiful black walnut tree right here in our yard. And it just rains down walnuts. Yep. I actually make a liqueur. I did when I had my pisco, we made liqueur. And actually the tree right above me is a loquat tree.
Oh, okay.
This is Sonoma Wine Country Living, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. I just put some bitters in. I put, it was almost a 1 to 3 with the vermouth. And I'm just going to be stirring here for just a second. The reason you're doing this is dilution, of course, and get the temperature down, but just a little dilution. And I've got this. I'm just going to squeeze that in. Why not?
Why not?
Why not throw that in? You got to use what you have these days, right?
Exactly. I mean, and really...
Because no one has black beans anymore.
No?
Did you get your black beans? I got like 1 can.
I just actually used the 2 cans I had.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to find anymore. I'm sorry.
Look at the color on that.
It's really, really nice. And I like to put a little... Oh, that's a horrible. This is already cut, so that's going to be hard to do. Oh, this is super, super sharp. There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
Perfect. Oh, yeah.
And you don't have to be super fancy with this. All I'm trying to do is get some of the oils in there, so I'm just going to go around the edge here. This is what we call the love, right? This is the... Oh, yeah, put that love right there. And then just on the edge there. I wish you could share this with me. I'm sorry.
I know, but I'm looking forward...
It's like teasing. I'm so sorry.
Well, I'm looking forward to creating some cocktails at home, probably later on today. But I'm also looking forward to happy hour tomorrow at 4.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have so much fun.
Yeah, and so tomorrow is called Tender Feelings. Is that what it is?
Tender Feelings.
Okay.
It's a cocktail that I believe Scott Beatty made. I'm going to have to check on that. But
okay.
He's a local bar
star
mixologist, a tastemaker.
Yeah.
If you don't know him, you should. So I'm super excited about that. I wanted to mention one other thing with the vermouth. This is the other brand that Vintage Wine Estates also owns. It's a real classic called Gen 209. Hopefully we'll be doing some tastings in the future with that. But again, if you're not, and the reason I want to mention is because I've been in restaurants my whole life. I know when you go to a tequila bar, sometimes you bring people who just want a vodka and soda.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, this is a great alternative. If you want to taste the partner, this is a good combination. It's a very clean, easy drinking gin.
Yeah, that would be a nice flavor combination for sure. Really kind of highlight the more, like you said, eucalyptus herbal aspect of it.
Totally, you can make a great Negroni. If you like Negronis, you're gonna love that combination. But
yum.
Cheers to you and to Poppy and Vine, and to our little staycation here that we're all.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on today.
You're welcome.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. See you.
Cheers. Bye.